Welcome to The Cynical Developer, the podcast that helps you to improve your development knowledge and career through explaining the latest and greatest in development technology and providing you with what you need to succeed as a developer. In this episode, we talked to Zack Burt about getting into freelancing, consultancy and contracting. Zack began programming with QBasic at the age of 9 and immediately found a passion. Since 2003, he's been working in the Silicon Valley in New York City as an individual contributor and in leadership roles. In 2007, he launched his software consultancy business after his PHP application, Lame Factor, was acquired by WikiU Incorporated. He is passionate about open source, both in pull requests and launching product and projects. He currently lives in Manhattan, where he enjoys playing basketball, meeting new and diverse people. He also actively encourages you to get in touch with him if you'd like to meet. Now, we'll have all the contact details for Zack in the show notes. So welcome to the show, Zack.
Thank you so much, James. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been looking forward to this for a while. We've been chatting on Facebook, and I'm glad to finally be on the show.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. And I think, unlike some of the other people that we've had on the show, Zack's coming at this from a slightly different angle. He's recently authored a book called Code for Cash, and it's centered around the best practices for freelance programming and consultancy. It's heavily written towards working in the United States, but the rules really apply universally, no matter what country you're in, and really what discipline you're in, whether you're a graphic designer, whether you're a programmer, whether you're a tester, or even something that's not slightly technical. You know, these rules are going to apply to you. It's a really good read. There will be a link to it in the show notes, and we've got a nice little discount code for you as well. If you wanted to head over there, it's going to be on breakingintoconsulting.com. And as I say, today we're going to be talking about freelancing, consultants or contracting. Very, very similar things, pretty much interchangeable, the words. Depends on your point of view, I guess. So I think for freelancing, for those of us that aren't freelancing, now I've played with the idea of doing it. It's quite daunting, and there's a lot of negatives that surround it. And when you talk to people about freelancing, it's always the doom and gloom of the bad things. So I don't want to start with those. So what I want to do is get into what you would see as the positive parts of freelancing. Oh, absolutely. I'm happy to roll with that, James.
Sure. So some of the positives are, let's start with financial aspects. You can often charge an hourly rate that is at least double what your effective hourly rate as a salaried employee is. So for example, if you're making 50,000 pounds a year, that translates into an effective hourly rate, assuming a 40-hour week, of about 25 pounds an hour. This exact same person with the same skill set will be billing at about 50 pounds an hour as a floor. So if you can keep the work going, you get a much higher hourly rate for your time, and there's you can get a better financial outcome from it. The next positive is freedom. So although remote work is increasing in forward-thinking work environments, the vast majority of freelance consulting is entirely remote. So you don't have to show up to an office. You can work from home, and as long as you're getting things done, you're good. And then the next one is responsibility. Generally, when companies contract an outside freelancer, it's because they absolutely need to get something done. And this gives you a chance to build your leadership skills and be truly responsible for the business result you're having in the organization, rather than, say, the technical impact you have in performing code review and setting standards within a repository and whatnot. You're responsible for creating some business value. And because of that, because you're closest to it, then you can capture a greater percentage of the revenue. So I'd say the main advantages are freedom and the sort of independence, so you don't have to be tied to any specific employer or any specific office at any given time.
Sure. So you're talking there about the remote working. Now, I've hired permanent employees and contractor employees, and I've done a little bit of freelance work. And I think, at least for me, the difference between freelancing and contracting is, as you say, with the freelancing, you work as yourself on a project, probably on yourself, and work remotely. Whereas contracting, I've had the experience that you have to go into the workplace for the company that you're working in, and you may work with a team there. Is that a distinction really that you make yourself, or would you see them completely the same and it's all situation with who you're working for or with?
Well, I think there's never really any true isolation in the freelance world. You're always in some way working with some team, and you're part of a team. There are instances where companies will contract out to add some capacity to a given team. And there are also some cases where they will just, they would delegate an entire project to you and you're working more in a cross-functional team capacity.
Sure. So we talked about that there's more money there, which is fantastic, and the freedom, which is great. One thing that I think a lot of developers that are permanent employees, they're always scared about the security aspect of it, because it's a lot easier to dismiss someone that's a contractor or a freelancer.
Absolutely.
But I think one thing, at least for my experience, is there's very little difference in the security side of it really for a contractor compared to a full-time employee, because the company could go bust at any time and they could let you go at any time. The difference is that as a permanent employee, you've got to be given some sort of notice, depending on how long you've been there and depending on your contract, of course. Is there anything that you could sort of say on the security side of it that you're aware of?
Oh, yeah, there are several issues. One is you have to be responsible for finding clients. So just like a company can go bust, the client could lose their budget for this particular project, and then you're SOL or screwed and out of luck.
Yeah.
So there's this major pillar problem is having to keep a steady pipeline of clients and not becoming too dependent on any one client. And that's a skill set in itself, and we can talk about that in depth later on about what some of the best practices are for sourcing clients. And, the other financial aspect that you're going to have to deal with, and regarding financial security, is that you're going to have to deal with both clients that don't pay, so clients that just try to get away with screwing you, because it's, a business world and they're just trying to negotiate you out of payment. And so that happens, and I can talk about some more stories there. And then also you're dealing with corporations who are paying you on vendor payment terms. And that might be, if you're an employee in the US, you can get paid every 2 weeks at least. You're used to a biweekly payment schedule, and no matter what, the money is always deposited. If you're dealing with a bigger company as a consultant, then, there's often times where you're going to be paid on like a net 30, or net 60 payment schedule. And then you get really up to you to call up the finance department and ask nicely and ask them to pay you early if that's something you need. But you're going to have to deal with different lead times for payment. And, one of the ways around that is asking the company for a retainer up front before you do work. And as a developer, you might not have the confidence to do this, but there are many professional services that will not start work without a retainer, and there's no reason that software can't be one of them. A lawyer, for example, won't do a single lick of work unless you pay the retainer. And you can take that same posture as a developer if you have enough credibility. So that's one technique for mitigating that challenge. But I would just recap by saying that the two main sources of financial strain as a freelancer are, one, keeping a steady pipeline of clients, and two, having the clients pay you and on time at that. And there are strategies, beyond what I've shared, and I talk about this in the book, but, one thing you can do is work into your contracts a late payment penalty so that interest starts accumulating on the payment when it hasn't been paid, and other strategies like that. So there are ways to deal with it, but there are certainly challenges, and freelancing can be daunting because it really requires a new set of skills that are entirely unrelated to technical skills.
Sure. Yeah, the not having any pay coming in, I think, is a big one that people don't realize when they set out to actually get into consulting, and they don't realize that you have these companies that you're going to submit your timesheet, and it's not going to be like where you were full-time employed, that on the 28th of the month you're going to get paid. You submit that on the 27th. They'll look at it on the 28th, and as you say, they've got 30 or 60 days depending on what their payment terms are and what your payment terms are. So when you first start out, you could be 2 months in with no pay at all, and that is something to really bear in mind. You do get, as you say, these clients that don't want to pay you. I've had it in the past where customers have been late with payments. I've had customers where I've been chasing them for 12 months for payment. I've got one guy that I did work for probably 8 or 9 years ago, and I really should just move on, but it's just in the back of my mind all the time. And I did a lot of work for him, built him a big e-commerce website, and he never paid. And I didn't have any formal contracts in place. It's one of those things that you live and learn. And with the customers that weren't paying, I did actually start implementing the penalties for late payments. And it's quite interesting how many of them suddenly started paying when they realised that if they don't pay within the first couple of weeks, that what they owe is going to be doubled and then tripled. And before they know it, they're going to be wanting to pay out a lot of money.
Totally. Absolutely. You got to use a carrot and stick system when dealing with vendors. You got to give them incentives to pay you early. I oftentimes will offer a discount for clients who pay in advance or pay their bill early. Yes. And you also want to add in the interest rate penalty for late payments. So,
yeah, that's good. And the retainer is quite a nice idea. It's not something that I've come across anybody doing as a developer before. So so that's something quite new over here, I guess. But I don't have that much to do with too many freelancers, to be honest. But we started talking already about the negative sides of it, and we to start with, we talked about how much more money you're going to get, and I think on the surface, you're going to get in that first invoice coming in, and it could be, I don't know, £10,000 or something like that if you've done a lot of work, and you think, oh, I've made it, I'm rich. But the things that you've got to bear in mind is the fact that you've got no holiday pay, you've got no sick pay, if you haven't got the insurances that pay you these things, and if you don't sort of manage your finances properly so that you could still pay yourself a wage while you're not working. So you've got to be a little bit more savvy than just turning up as a 9-to-5er and going home. You've got to have that business acumen, or have someone around you, an accountant, that has that bit of knowledge for you, I guess.
Absolutely. And I absolutely recommend that freelancers take use of professional accountants. I had a client who tried to not pay me a $30,000 plus invoice. I got a lawyer involved, and then that, I got a $17,000 payment, and they tried to put strings on the other $17,000, but I wouldn't pay it. And then I got my accountant. He was able to structure it in a way such that I was able to take a deduction on my tax returns. And I don't know how he did it. I'm not an expert in accountancy law. So I recommend, delegating to a professional there. Absolutely. It can make a world of difference. It's sort of like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Spending a couple grand on a professional services can make the world of difference. It's like you get what you pay for. Same thing with software. You try to hire a developer at £20,000 a year, it's going to cost you more than it's worth. You get someone good, it can be an absolutely responsible and prudent investment.
Yeah, definitely. I think for the developers out there and for the people that are in those management positions, it is a sort of, it reflects quite well with developers is the fact that it's cheaper and better for you to go out and get that database engineer to come in and build the database for your system than it is to pay your senior developer who really is experienced in writing code but not experienced with databases. It works out better than getting him to write it and it not being up to the job. You wouldn't want that, and you wouldn't go and hire a school cook to come and fit a boiler. So it's getting the right people in for the job.
Well said.
One of the other daunting things to bear in mind, I think, is the big periods where you could be without work, because it's not always the fact that you're going to roll into the next gig. You could be a few months or so without.
I want to say something here. I gotta say that the biggest mistake that I see freelancers make is that they stop prospecting once they get a big fish client, and then it's like that. There's a saying: "The hungry don't get fed," and that's absolutely true when signing clients. Clients have a sixth sense for when you really need them and when you're desperate and when you're not. And you have to build off the momentum of your success in order to sign more clients. And that goes doubly true when you're already busy with work. As a freelancer, the truth is you have to always be prospecting. You can never stop prospecting. Constantly prospect, constantly look for new work, even when you're too busy to do it, especially when you're too busy to do it. Because then next thing you know, they say when it rains, it pours, and then there's going to be a little bit of a drought, and, things are going to get tough, and it's going to be a lot more challenging. You're going to feel desperate. You're going to want to lower your rates, and that's going to make a long-term impact for you because it's all about momentum. So in order to preserve the momentum, you absolutely have to put in the work to constantly prospect. There's a saying that I like to refer to. It's success isn't owned, it's leased, and rent is due every day. So as a freelancer, you must be constantly looking for work. And that's just a lesson that I've learned the hard way. And I've been working on some projects to make this a little bit easier for developers. For example, I wrote this aggregator using Ruby and PHP for the front end, Ruby for the back end to do the parsing. And it crawls through lots of different classified ads markets for freelance programming gigs. It goes through a bunch of the Reddit subreddits for freelance programming gigs, the For Hire, the Jobit, et cetera. It goes through local classified markets, other job aggregators, and it, has the potential to send you an email alert. I'll send that link to you, James, if you want to put it in the show notes.
Yeah, sure. We'll put it in there because that sounds quite useful for the listeners, and that if they're actually already contracting or they're looking at getting into it, it's a good way to get an eye of what's going on in the market. Now, I think for me, there are also other routes to get working, and you can go out and find it yourself, and you get it through networking and stuff. But when you're first starting out, you haven't got that network to lean on, and a good recruitment agency is probably a good route to go. Now, finding a good recruiter is hard. It's hard.
It's like an oxymoron almost.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of them are bloodsuckers and cretins. They just want to throw you at the quickest thing they can to get the quickest bit of cash out of you. But
right. Oh my gosh. Can I just rant for a minute? Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
I hate recruiters as a species. There are like a few exceptions, but by far they're terrible people. There's this thing called the principal agent problem, where the agent or recruiter's interest is not aligned with the principal or developer's interest. So, like they said, they'll lie, they'll throw you at any jobs. They try to bust your chops by screening you for technical keywords that they know nothing about. They're just honestly, as a species, I don't know if there's something like categorically wrong with them as people, but it's the situation. It's the fact that they have an incentive that's just perversely misaligned with yours just makes them extremely upsetting to deal with. And they will use every inappropriate tactic in the book to get leverage on you, to make you feel bad about yourself, and to push you into work that's really not necessarily in your best interest. And there are good recruiters, and there are every so often good agencies. And if I might speak to that, there's a few that I could recommend. I've actually had good experience with Hired.com. They started a freelancer marketplace recently. They're very selective, unfortunately, but they're good. Another decent one is TopTal.com. And another one is Gun.io, www.gun.io. And these are all agencies, and they take a fee, and you're not going to make the most amount of money working with them, because they're really trying to create a little bit of a commodity marketplace for high-end technical talent. So you're not going to get the hugest bucks with them, but they're good, and they actually pay, and they have good reputations. And they do a lot of catering to developers, and they sort of get it. And they've sort of created a model where it sort of handles the principal agent dilemma. So those are a few services that I recommend.
Yeah, I was aware of Hired.com. There are two separate instances for Hired.com. There's Hired.com in the States, and there's Hired.com for the UK. Now, Hired.com in the UK, it's not as widely accepted yet. It hasn't got its foothold in the market over here. I am registered with them, and it took. I think I registered my account. I and it probably took 2 or 3 months until I actually got an email and said, oh yeah, we've actually got some work for you, because they just don't have the people on there. So the market's slightly different. But I totally agree with you, the way that you're talking about the recruitment agencies. I work really with 1 or 2 agencies that I work with for years. I've been placed through them and for permanent work, and I've had employees from them when I've been hiring for my teams. And what I like about those agencies is that the guys and the girls that I'm dealing with, they actually understand a little bit about technology. Some of them have worked as testers or even developers, and they get it. They understand what you're talking about, and they know what makes a good environment. I've also had the privilege of working with the other type, which you don't want to. And I've had arguments, I've had slanging matches on phones with recruiters. I remember one quite prominently. He rang me up and he said, oh, right, you've got an interview. It's next Wednesday. I think it was at 3:00, and it's with this company. And I said, whoa. This is the first time I have spoken to you. I don't know who you are. Secondly, I do not want to work for that company because I know the company and it's not a fit culture-wise for me. It's not what I like to do. And he got really shirty with me. And his response was, it is not your choice where you interview for, it is mine. And I have booked you in for this, and you will not let me down, and you will go to that interview. And I was thinking, pardon? Excuse me? Who are you? And, well, needless to say, I put the phone down and I didn't go to that interview. And,
right.
You know, a lot of the time you get emails and things from the recruiters, and all they're using is automated software, and the automated software is terrible. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I get junior roles coming through, and you look at it and think, how did I even tick the boxes for these?
You know, I feel like it's you have to learn to take the high road and not take it personally.
Oh yeah,
and like and understand that like they are trying to devalue you just for their own interest, but you have to understand that it's just a conflict of interest. But I think I'd be very interested in setting up like maybe a series of boxing matches between recruiters and developers, and just let them duke it out in the ring and take the low road and just get a little bit of like a catharsis. Yeah.
On a couple of occasions, I've been contacted by a recruiter because they've seen that I was interested in leaving where I am, to only be offered my current role. And you think, have you even looked at where I'm working at the moment? I'm on LinkedIn. My profile's out there. You've probably got my CV. Read it. There's one guy, he rings me quite often, to be honest, and he always offers me the same job, and I have to explain to him that the company that he's working for trades under 5 or 6 different names, and it's the same job. And in the same conversation, he offered me the same job 3 times, and I had to sit him down and say, look, this is the same company. I can tell you the history of them because I've worked for them, and I would never go back and work for them again. And you think, really, what are you doing? What are you doing? You need to sort yourself out, and you're never going to achieve anything if you're going to be like this. But that's. I think we could rant on about them for a long time.
It's one of those things where you don't really want to put salt in the wound because it's only going to aggravate. It's like when that scene in Star Wars where they prod the beast in the dungeon with the electric rod to get it agitated, and this is just going to make me more agitated and have my resentment towards the recruiter subspecies. Just
we might have to come back for a part 2 and part 3 where we continue talking about them and not get to actually talk about what we want to talk about. I'm
having a good time. So
one of the big things in the UK at the moment is we've got something called IR35, which is legislation that the tax office and that use to try and catch you out if you're trying to be registered as a self-employed person or working for yourself, consulting, contracting, but really you're a permanent employee, but you're getting the tax relief benefits of being self-employed. Now that includes things like going to work events. It's having the same holidays. It's having to work from 9 till 5 and having half an hour for your lunch. It's doing the things exactly the same as every other employee is doing. Now, I don't know if there are anything if there's anything like that in other countries or over in the States, anything like that. I know that HMRC in the UK has some guidelines around it, but it's a very grey area, and if you're not sure about it, you should go and talk to one of the specialists out there. But I don't know if you've got anything like that in the States that you could talk about.
Well, the extent to which there are programs available that try to mimic the benefits of full-time employment, there are some that are rising. Co-working spaces are increasingly popular, and that gives you the trappings of office life. And I have to say I hate them, just with a passion, because they're open offices and they create a lot of the same problems and stress that exist in open office workplaces. I am not a fan of open plan environments. I think developers need quiet to work. I think I do my best coding in absolute quiet. Headphones are just, kind of a stopgap solution, but I am not a fan of those. But there are new services, like there's this freelancers union that offers a lot of the healthcare benefits if you subscribe to their insurance plan. So there are absolutely resources available to provide you with a lot of the benefits. And in the book, I talk about a lot of the things you can do to roll up your sleeves and sort of serve your own interests as a self-employed person while, still getting some of the benefits of employed life. For example, how to meet people outside of the workplace. It's not a skill that everyone has necessarily. And in adult life, it's even harder because you're not necessarily around people, your peer group necessarily. So I talk about some of the strategies for doing that, bars and sports leagues and coffee shops, and, where I've been able to meet people and make friends despite not having an office to put me in a room with like-minded individuals. So that's something I've had to learn, and I talk about that in the appendix quite a bit.
Yeah, it's something as a permanent employee that I've had to face down as well, because in some of the roles I may have been the only developer there, and it might have been a very small company of, say, 5 or 6 people. So you don't have that interaction and those people to bounce off. And I do a lot of other things as well as my technical and IT stuff. I'm involved in a couple of societies for tropical fish keeping, as some of the listeners will know. I also play airsoft in an airsoft team. So it is about getting out there and getting active and meeting other people. And from a tech point of view, I also attend a local developer group called Chester Devs, which is in the local city here. And that's really good to go out there and actually meet other people and talk to them and find out that what's new and what's going on. And it gives you that bit of outlet, because they're used to people ranting about how bad the situation is. And if you haven't got anybody in the office to rant to, it can be quite difficult. And you've got conventions and things like that you can head out to if you've got the time and you've got the money to do it. And that's really good for your networking and stuff like that.
Absolutely. The user groups and meetups can also be a great channel for finding clients, especially if you are giving a talk. And a lot of developers have this misconception that at some point you either, your programming abilities are so revered and well known that people invite you to give talks, or at some point you graduated into becoming a special kind of wizard and people will start inviting you to give talks. But it's not truly the case. A lot of the times people talking at conferences and meetups have just sent in solicitations to the organizers offering to talk. And that can be a great channel for building your brand as an authority and picking up some contract work down the road. It's one of the long-term investment things, but it's a fun thing to do to get your name out there. And also, a lot of these talks are now recorded because it's so easy to record content. Cell phones have such high quality, high fidelity cameras especially. So a lot of these talks go on YouTube, or, you can upload your slides to SlideShare or any other services similar, and start building some search engine recognition for your name. And that helps with closing deals and also helps people just finding you out of the blue. Like a good thing that I recommend is blogging, but blog about technical topics, because people will find you, because that's how people find answers to questions these days. But here's a pro tip. Put your contact information on every page in your blog. If you have a template, if there's a layout file, or however you do it, whether it's WordPress, there's a way. that you, in every page, your contact information can be displayed, and you can mention that you're available for freelance work.
Yeah, it's a good tip, and it's that self-branding and getting yourself out there. And you, as you say, you mentioned blogs and things and getting a website. One of the biggest bugbears I've had with permanent employees and hiring contract employees is the lack of a LinkedIn account. Now,
Oh my
LinkedIn
gosh.
is the professional version of Facebook. If you're not on there, why? What are you hiding for? You need to be on there. I've had several jobs through LinkedIn where people have searched for developers in the area or the highest rated developer in a certain group. You know, it's worth being on there. And I'm not saying going on there, you don't go on there and you put pictures of your kids on there and every last little detail about you. That you stole a bike when you were 14. It's not that sort of thing. Get on there and get your experience on, because people know straight off the bat what you're about and what you're doing. And you can link to your blog, you can link to your website, you can link to your GitHub account, your open source software stuff, anything like that. Building a brand is a big thing. I went through a change of attitude with this probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago now. I did everything online under a pseudonym. It was always a screen name. And around the same sort of time, one of my friends that I'd gone to college with and university went through a similar sort of transition. And we went in polar opposites. He stopped his online presence. He got rid of social media and things, whereas I sort of just went full force into it and everything was under my name. So if you search James Stoddart, you'll come up with my stuff, or you'll come up with the other James Stoddart on the other side of the pond in America who does a lot of 3D stuff. That's quite entertaining, is that we both started off in a similar role, because in a past life I was a graphic designer. I used to do a lot of 3D graphics and things like that. But he's actually taken that as a career, and I spurred off and went down the route of the programming side of it. But I was saying, my friend went and got rid of his Facebook, he got rid of his Twitter and MySpace and things that it was back then. Whereas I was like, no, I'm just going to put my name out there, and if people want to find me, they can do. I'm not out there hiding from anybody, and you need to know what I'm about. And it's one of the first thing a lot of employees will do now is search for you online to find out what's going on. On the same note of putting your good stuff on there, make sure your bad stuff isn't on there as well, that's too easy to access. We all like to go out and party and enjoy ourselves, but make sure there's no compromising situations that are photographed and put on Facebook for potential employees to find you and use against you maybe in an interview. Now, I think there's been a few hyped up stories, whether they're urban myths, I don't know, especially in the States, where people have put messages on Facebook or they've put photographs up and it's lost them the interview, or it's got them sacked from their job or anything. So there is that bit of self-censorship I think you've got to go through. But in the long run, if you're not online and you're not being an idiot and you're not doing something stupid on there, then you haven't got anything to worry about. Just get on there and get your brand out there, because people need to know who you are, and you're competing with thousands of people now for these jobs. So you've got to do something that's got to maybe up your game a little bit and set you above the rest.
Well said.
I think we touched on something about being good at your job as well. I think is something that is more important as a freelancer, I would say.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
I have to really speak up here. As a freelancer, as a developer, the most important thing here is your communication skills and your sales abilities. And no matter how good of a developer you are, if you don't make the client feel good about themselves, you're not going to get hired. Something that I love to do, it's fundamentally, it's in my nature, is I love to nitpick and criticize. If you show me any company's website, I can go through it and I can find 50 things to improve and optimize and change, whether it's fixing typos, fixing a broken link, minimizing the minification of the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, putting the images on a CDN so that HTTP concurrent requests aren't limited with a browser bottleneck. There are any number of things that I can find to improve. The list goes on ad nauseum. And there's this book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And one of the tenets it says is don't criticize, condemn, or complain. And, I don't always abide by this. For example, James, I was just complaining about recruiters with you just,
Yeah.
a few moments ago. But, I got to say that when you're dealing with selling a client, it's really all about how you make them feel and what sort of business value you can, generate for them rather than your skills as a technical professional. I was making a lot more money as a freelance consultant before I ever had a formal job as a software engineer. And it was much easier for me to get hired as a developer, as a freelance consultant developer, than it was to get a job as as a software engineer in an engineering team. Because at a freelance level, I just had to talk about how I could provide solutions that generated business value. Whereas joining an engineering team, I had to pass their quizzes, the API quizzes, the algorithm tests, red black trees, is it order of n log n or is it order of log n, all of that good stuff that is absolutely healthy to know, but it's a completely different skill. And I don't want to say that I completely disagree with your point, because your reputation matters and the quality of your work matters for getting referrals and getting references. But at the end of the day, it's a lot less about the technical quality of the work than how well you manage the client relationship. And I talk about this in the book, but let me just, give away some of the value here. It's really all about communicating often, being very responsive to them, and under-promising and over-delivering. As long as you under-promise and over-deliver and you communicate often, the client is going to be happy. Those are the keys. Absolutely.
Sure. I can definitely agree with those points as well. And communication is something that I think is very hard for a lot of developers. I think by nature, the vast majority of us out there are very introverted and very shy, and it's something that you're going to have to get over if you want to go into the freelance market. You've got to be able to stand up and talk to people and put yourself out there. It's not always about locking yourself in a room, because as you touched on earlier, if you lock yourself in a room and don't even go out there and look for other work until you desperately need it, it's going to be a problem. So you need to be out there talking to people, and having that ability to talk to people is a must. And it might be go out there and get yourself a coach on the situation, and that will help you get along. But something needs to be done, and I put my abilities to communicate down to working in retail. I did 6 years in retail while I was in education, and before I did that, I was very, very shy, sort of very nervous disposition, and that helped me to manage that and get over that. But for those of you that have sort of missed the boat on that one, there are other routes there to learn how to communicate properly.
I agree. Absolutely. I am absolutely an introvert by nature. But it's gotten to a point where just through sheer force of will, I can put myself out there and deal with rejection. I mean, it's really just part of life. At the end of the day, for me, it's really almost about like survival at an animal level. Like I have to, if I want to eat, if I want to pay rent, then I have to put myself out there, and I have to communicate, and I have to reach out, and I have to deal with rejection. Otherwise, I'm either going to be, broke and homeless, or I'm going to be stuck in a position that, does not fulfill me intellectually, and I'm essentially going to be someone's slave. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what it's about at the end of the day. And just as someone who is most comfortable on, like my happy zone, my sweet spot, I have to admit, my security blanket is my laptop. I feel a lot more I like, it's this weird, but my laptop is in my bed most nights. I fall asleep, maybe watching something on Netflix. I, feel comfortable. I'm in the zone when I'm on my computer. I type at 120 words per minute when I'm in the zone. It's my strong suit. I feel comfortable there. And I can say that if, the next step is just really, you don't have to put yourself out there in person necessarily. As long as you can present yourself, you put yourself out there, you can do it via text chat. I got my first ever client, technically, when I was on this web forum called Something Awful. And there was a software subforum on it, and someone was running a web hosting service, and he was having trouble with Apache. And I actually didn't know anything about Apache, but I knew enough that I could Google it, and I was comfortable enough with Linux that I could deal with it, even though I really didn't know Linux. Like, I was going to be hired to be like a sysadmin. I never would have passed the job, but I had a basic, knowledge of it, and I was able to find this client and get a $250 gig just on the internet only. And my most recent client we met on Reddit, and it's been extremely lucrative for me. So you don't necessarily need to get yourself out of the house. Just get some dress shirts that you can put on for a Skype meeting if necessary, and have a professional photo for your LinkedIn. LinkedIn profiles without a photo are a big red flag. So have a photo, and you put yourself out there, but you can start by putting yourself out there on the internet, hanging out on. Yeah. And that's just a good way to get your foot in the door. And it's for people who feel most comfortable, the nice way I put it is by saying I'm an indoor cat. So if you're an indoor cat and you like to, you're introverted, you prefer to stay inside, then, it's absolutely feasible. Absolutely.
Sure. Now, one of the barriers, I think, for people wanting to get out there and start contracting is that a lot of contracts are looking for niche skills. And if you've been in the same job for 10, 15, 20 years, you've got an experience of the software that you write at that job, but not necessarily the skills that are up to date and things.
So let me just say something. No matter what you're doing, whatever your specialty is, if you're niched into something, there's a market for that. The world is a big enough place. There are 7 billion people on the planet, maybe 8, 6 billion, whatever. A lot of people over, there's almost 2 billion people on Facebook. I mean, a lot of them are just, on their mobile phone. But the point is, there's such a big world. It's just unfathomably large. And I mean, it's very hard to visualize, any 6 billion people. I mean, the human mind isn't built to that. Maybe we can visualize 150, Dunbar's number or whatever. But, it's just, there's a market for that. I had someone online message me on Reddit the other day. They have a very niche skill set related to GIS or geo information. Their skills are mostly related to dealing with map data. And they were like, yeah, I'd like to start consulting, but I have such a niche skill set. How am I ever going to find work? Blah, blah, blah. Then today I got 2 different jobs alerts in my jobs board for GIS jobs. So there's, no matter where you are, no matter if you've been in developing for any amount of time, you have a marketable skill. It's just there's this thing called the imposter syndrome where people don't believe that they're good when they actually are, and in the developer community, people like to take pot shots against each other in code reviews. Hacker News is a famously bitter online community. People on Twitter are so mean and cruel. Like Twitter announced something you'll notice that the site is secure if it has HTTPS and there's a secure icon in your browser. Someone said on Twitter, some leading developer said what a poor approach to security. This is horrible. And that just makes you feel bad about yourself if you can't imagine a better way to do it. And people are so twisted and evil that they will undermine your self-confidence in any number of ways. And you really have to take my word for it. No matter what you do, if you've been doing it for at least 6 months, there is a marketable skill there that you can sell. I guarantee it. I absolutely guarantee it. So, yes, there's a continuing education is important, blah, blah, blah. For me, I find it I hate learning new technology. I'll be honest with you. I hate it. I don't want to do it. I had a client who maybe the one time I had a client who said, okay, you know what? We'll pay you to learn iOS. I said, fine. I'll do the training and I'll bill you for it. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like learning new technology. The only time I like learning new tech is if there's something I want to build and I need to learn it in order to build it. I want to make something and that tech would be a good tool for it. Then I'll learn it. Then I'll have a passion for learning it and I'll roll up my sleeves. I'll read the documentation. It'll be fun. But I hate the idea of oh, well, I have to improve my career as a developer. So instead of enjoying my weekend, I'm going to have to do a bunch of, what is it called? Project Euler problems in Haskell. Like, that sounds terrible to me. Like occasionally, if I'm in that particular mood, I'll do it for its own sake. Okay, maybe. But no, I'm not like so my points here are that if you can, let your passion be your guide in learning new tech. And, you probably don't have to. There are people that are making tons of money as COBOL programmers these days because there's no one else who can maintain the code because no one else is experienced with COBOL.
Yeah.
There are Fortran programmers, there are Pascal programmers, there are Delphi programmers these days. There are legacy maintenance systems. And honestly, those jobs are the cushiest because no one else can do the work. And, it's really a seller's market.
Yeah, I think if you're going out there to do brownfield work and stuff, that those older skill sets are invaluable, really. But I would imagine that if you haven't got some of the more up-to-date skills, is that there's possibly not as much greenfield work there for you. But
fair enough. That's totally valid, man. I completely, yeah.
And I think the other problem that I've had people sort of come up with freelancing is, well, what happens if I don't like it or I have a big period and I can't get any work? What do I do then? And then what sort of things have you got? What advice would you give to somebody who was worried?
I'll tell you. I wrote about this in the book. I have a whole chapter on what to do when this happens. Ready for the answer? Drum roll, please. Go back to a regular coding job. Yeah. It's that simple. I mean, there's such a market for it. And the question is, how do you frame it to HR? It's simple. This is the line you want to use. Freelancing required too much effort in sales and marketing. I'm a developer by nature. I love working in a team environment, and I didn't want to be all on my own. I wanted to be working with a team every day, writing code, and I want to work with the marketing team. I don't want to be the marketing team. That's magic to their ears. They love to hear it. They're okay with that, and that will deal with your, if they're like, well, why weren't you employed? That is a narrative that is both high integrity because it's true. Because, if you were enjoying marketing and sales, you'd be doing that and getting work in the door. And, it's politically correct. So that's essentially what you want to say.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. And as long as you can justify what you're doing, then it's all good. And I think that's a good segue into come back to the book that it's available on breakingintoconsulting.com. We're going to have a discount code for it, and that'll be on the show notes. And we're pretty much out of time now. It's flown by, absolutely flown by. So thanks for coming on and talking to us about it. Hopefully we'll get a few more freelancers out there in the market off the back of this. And if anybody's got any questions, reach out, talk to me. I'll put you in contact with Zack. Contact Zack straight away yourself. All his contact details will be on the show notes. So again, thanks for coming on, Zack.
Thank you, James, and thanks for everyone for listening. Yeah, this has been it's been fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for listening to The Cynical Developer. I'm James Stoddart, and you've been listening to Zack Burt talking about breaking into consulting. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on your favourite podcast platform and help The Cynical Developer to grow by increasing its audience. If you have any questions about this or any other episode, then drop us an email, a tweet, or leave a comment on the website where you can find all the resource links and show notes for each episode.